Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Hope you guys are keeping well. Guys, I wanted to discuss a few things in this video. I saw an interview from Alex Govzik about Canelo beterbiev bivol. And I also want to talk a bit about Josh Taylor in the second part of the video. So guys, Alex Govzik says that Canelo Alvarez will beat Arthur Beterbiev and he will struggle. However, Bivol has a style that could give Canelo some issues. A lot of people have said this to me, by the way. A lot of people think that Beterbiev is actually an easier fight than Bivol. I disagree. I disagree because I think Bivol's a good boxer. He's a very good mover. He's got fast hands. Not much punching power. I'll be brutally honest with you. I don't think he's a big puncher. And I know Ray said on thing that he thinks he's a big puncher. I don't think he's a big puncher personally. I think he can punch. Nothing that's going to keep Canelo off of him, in my opinion. I think if Canelo has to, Canelo can start walking him down. A lot of people think that Bivol's foot movement, hand speed will cause Canelo a lot of trouble, and they think he could outbox Canelo Alvarez. You look, whenever you talk about a guy outboxing Canelo Alvarez, you have to go back about 7-8 years ago. 7-8 years ago, and that's a very, very long time ago. Bivol, for me, is a good fighter, no doubt about it. He's definitely, a guy that can fight. But, I think Canelo Alvarez right now is a complete fighter. I think you're going to have to be something really, really special to outbox Canelo at this point. I just don't think Bivol, I don't think Bivol is good enough anyway. Maybe a Floyd Mayweather type gifted magician like that, possibly, but not someone like Bivol. I just don't see it. I just think Bivol is a bit of a upgrade version from Caleb Plant. I just don't think he's got any power. And I said this to Christian when we were on air on the live stream, and I said that it doesn't matter how good you are, how slick you are, how fast you are, right? If you don't have power, you can't beat Canelo. You have to have power. And this is where I argue about Andrade, where I say I don't think Andrade's got no power to keep Canelo off. And that's where someone like me and Christian butt our heads, because I don't believe Andrade has power or has enough power for Canelo to respect it, in my opinion. And that's where I think Andrade will get bashed up, because I don't think he has the power to keep Canelo off. I don't think Bivol has the power to keep Canelo off. I personally think the only way to beat Canelo is outmanning him. So, a Beterbiev, for me, if you're a slick fighter, if you're an Andrade with Golovkin power, right, then you possibly have a chance. But if you haven't got serious power, not like power, like respect. I'm talking, you have to have vicious power. You have to have knockout power. And very few fighters possess that. Golovkin had that, and Canelo took Golovkin shots. Golovkin was really, at times in the first fight, bullying Canelo. He was all on top of him. He was really aggressive and hitting Canelo with huge shots. And Canelo soaked a lot of Golovkin shots up. Golovkin was an absolute beast, right? So, for me, Canelo's proven his chin, his toughness. He's already proven that. But in terms of Bivol, I actually think the only guy that's going to give Canelo a hard run is Beterbiev. I think Beterbiev is the guy that's going to cause Canelo issues, because, like I said, I think there is an issue with Canelo where a lot of people say that there's no stamina issues. I just don't think he's fought a fighter like Golovkin after, that fight. I'm not saying Canelo's got stamina issues, but I think if a guy can make Canelo work 3 minutes of the round, I think Canelo can be put under serious pressure. And I think Beterbiev could be that guy. Beterbiev's a lot bigger than Golovkin. He's very, very strong. There is a question mark around his chin, which Canelo could exploit. But does Canelo at that weight hit hard enough to hurt Beterbiev? I believe so. Can he stop Beterbiev? Possibly, maybe beating him down, but it's not going to be easy for Beterbiev or Canelo, because Beterbiev walks forward. A reason why that's a great fight, because Beterbiev walks forward, Canelo likes you to walk to him because Canelo's a good counterpuncher. That fight is it's a very difficult fight to call. Very, very tough fight for Canelo, that one. The Bivol fight. And some of you have said that you think Bivol causes Canelo trouble, but you think Beterbiev's an easier fight. I can't see it, man. Can't see it. Like, how? Can't see it. Look, Bivol is a similar type of fighter that Canelo's been fighting and wiping out. What's Canelo's been fighting guys like that? Yeah, Bivol's a little bit better than Saunders, better than Plant. You know, he's a bit better than that. Yeah, but he's not. For me, he's not. Like, I saw him against Craig Richards. A lot of people said he was in first gear. I wasn't too impressed. Like, if you've got power, right, you got power, you can blow somebody away. He couldn't even blow. Craig Richards was a British level, like, everywhere. Good fighter. Craig Richards can fight, but, you know, you'd expect someone like Bivol to get him out of there. And Bivol really didn't trouble him at all in that fight. So, yeah, I think Canelo Alvarez will be too much for Bivol. If I'm honest with you, I don't think that's I think it's a competitive fight, but I think eventually Canelo gets to him and stops him late. You know, like the Plant fight, like the Saunders fight. Canelo will get to those type of guys. You know, unless you've got power, you ain't beating him. Forget about the Floyd fight. Forget about the Lara fight. That was a long time ago. That was Canelo when he was young. That was Canelo when he was, you know, still developing as a fighter. Now we're looking at a fighting machine. We're looking at a complete fighting machine in Canelo Alvarez. And he's a very good defensive fighter now as well. He's very good with his head movement. He's very slick. He's a complete fighter right now. You know, he's a complete fighter right now. And the confidence is through the roof. He's got the momentum. He feels he's unstoppable. You know, just the confidence that he's got. You know, it's gonna take something special to beat that guy at this particular point, where he's at in his career, the way he's performing. Yeah, it's going to take something really special to beat him. It's going to take something very, very special. And I'm not sure if there's anyone out there that can do it at this particular point. Beterbiev's the only guy that I think is going to be a very tough fight for Canelo, just because of the size, the strength, him walking Canelo down, making it uncomfortable, giving him basically no breathing space and making him work for 3 minutes of the round, you know, and the size, the strength of Beterbiev, because Kovalev's not really, I know Canelo locked out Kovalev, but firstly, Kovalev wasn't at his best. Secondly, Kovalev's not really a pressure fighter. Kovalev likes to box behind the jab. Kovalev's got a very good jab. And at times, Kovalev was doing very well in that fight against Canelo. Some people actually had him ahead until Canelo flattened him. But I just think Beterbiev's style, you know, is just all horrible. It's horrible. And you can't see that not being a hard fight for Canelo. Just the style of Beterbiev, him walking Canelo down, walking at him, just... Yeah, that's a very, very tough fight. That's a very, very tough fight. That's not an easy fight for Canelo at all. If I'm brutally honest with you, that's a very, very tough fight. I can see Canelo making the adjustments and getting the win, but it's a fight that could go either way. If you were to ask me how I see it, for me, it's a 50-50. You know, I can see ways both win, to be honest with you. I can see ways both win. At the minute, and both right now have got that momentum. Both right now seem unstoppable. So it's kind of a great fight because both of them seem so confident right now. They've got the momentum. They seem unstoppable. They're both going to be very difficult to beat. So what's going to give in that fight? I really want to see that fight. Really, really want to see it. I think it'd be a cracker. Canelo beterbiev. I think it's definitely the best fight that can be made in boxing, in terms of styles wise, and in terms of having Canelo in there with, in a competitive fight, in a very, very tough fight, one that he could easily lose. I can't remember this Canelo being in a fight that tough since Golovkin. Golovkin was a guy that a lot of people thought would beat Canelo. And I think the fact that Canelo's been proving us wrong, right? He may even be made the bookies' favorite, which I believe he was the underdog against Golovkin. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he was the underdog against Golovkin. And he probably, a lot of people may have him the underdog against beterbiev. But because of the way what Canelo's done over the years and how he's proved us wrong in certain fights, like the Golovkin fight, which a lot of people thought he'd lose, and how easy and dominant he's been looking of late, he'll probably be a favorite against beterbiev. But that's, again, a very, very tough fight. That's the kind of legacy fight which Canelo needs on his resume. Beterbiev is a legacy fight for him. It's a massive, massive fight, and a fight that will enhance his legacy, make him a greater champion, make him a greater fighter. Listen, I believe Canelo can beat anyone from 160 to 175. But I hope we get all of those big fights. We get the Charlo fight, the beterbiev fight, the Andrade fight. I want to see all of those fights. Hopefully they happen. But guys, I want to leave that segment here, and then I want to talk a bit about Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor put out a tweet the other day saying that, he doesn't feel that he gets enough recognition. He doesn't get credit. And BoxRec had him ranked number 4, pound for pound Britain, British fighter. They had Callum Smith, I believe, at 3. They had Anthony Joshua at 2, and they had Tyson Fury first. A lot of people were up in arms, like, oh my God, how can you have Josh Taylor number 4? And, rightfully so. I think Josh Taylor definitely deserves to be higher pound for pound in Britain. You could argue 1 and 2 with him and Fury. I don't think Anthony Joshua or, Callum Smith, who are beltless right now, should be ahead of the, an undisputed champion. Fury, you can have your, Fury's done a lot in terms of beating Wilder. That's a dangerous guy. He beat Klitschko years ago. So even when you look at it, Fury's beaten a good name in Wilder. But when you look at the run that Josh Taylor's had, 18 fights, being undisputed in 18 fights, fighting most of the top fighters at 140 and beating them, I think you have to put him at number 1 as of right now. Maybe if Fury beats Usyk and becomes undisputed, then I think you'd have to put Fury number 1. But I think as of right now, Josh Taylor deserves to be the number 1 fighter in Britain, just because of what he's achieved and what he's done. And unfortunately, the problem is with Josh Taylor, he doesn't really have a name. For sometimes you could be a really good fighter or a really good sportsman, but you're not that marketable. And he kind of fits into that category where he's a bit like a Terence Crawford, like our version of Terence Crawford, where he's not like he's not really a household name. He deserves more recognition than what he's getting. He deserves more coverage. But it kind of seems like, even though he's good, there's not that star factor about him, and he's not really getting the coverage. And maybe it's the fact that, a lot of his fights he's fighting guys which are also not names like Ramirez, Prograis. These were unknown names. These are guys that are unknown. Nobody really knows them. So again, he probably needs a big fight, like, a fight with like a Khan or a Brook, something like that, which will make him a much bigger name, a household name, which unfortunately at the minute he's not. And that's why I said that the winner of, like, especially if Khan wins, that could be a potential matchup for Sky Sports and Boxer, because even though people will say, oh, Khan's washed, this, that, and the other, it makes a lot of sense for Josh Taylor's career, because it's a big fight and it'll make him popular. Do you understand? Because he hasn't really had big, like, catch-all fights, not going to do anything for his popularity. You know, it's not a big fight. Whereas a Khan fight would be massive if he moves up to 147. You know, of course, he's going to target Crawford. He's going to target all of those big names, which is fair. There's nothing wrong with him targeting all the big names, but I don't think it's wise for him to come to 147 pound and go to Spence and you know, Crawford right away. You're gonna have to have a fight, and a fight with someone like a Khan or a Brook would be massive because of the fact that both of those guys have bigger names than him, and Khan especially has a way bigger name than, you know, most fighters. Not just, you know, barring Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, you'd say Khan even today is probably the third biggest name in British boxing in terms of how globally he's recognized. So a Josh Taylor fight with him would do great for Josh Taylor's popularity. It'd help increase his profile. He'll get a huge payday, you know, and I think Taylor deserves all of this. You know, and he'll be a massive favorite in beating Amir Khan. Then he can move on and fight your Crawfords. But I just think that they need to get in fights which are going to make him a bigger star. You know, sometimes I feel like sometimes you do fights that not necessarily are the most competitive, or the public don't perceive to be very competitive because of the fact that one guy's really past his best, but it does the fighter that needs the popularity, the coverage to grow his brand, you know, because I feel like Josh Taylor, although he's an undisputed champion, he doesn't really have a brand, or he doesn't really have the popularity or the name that an undisputed champion should have, you know, which is kind of baffling. You know, he should be a much bigger star. And that's why he probably gets overlooked and on like the spot, because although he's achieved a lot of people don't really know who he is. Like if you go on the street and say, do you know who Josh Taylor is here in the UK? I don't think a lot of people would know who he is. You know, and unfortunately, I think he deserves a lot more. He deserves a lot more credit. He deserves to be more popular. But, you know, you could say maybe he's not been promoted. Great. Maybe it's just the fact that, you know, there's not that star. You know, not just fighters, but some sportsmen just don't have that star appeal. And some guys are not even that great, right? But they have that it factor. You know, they have that star appeal. You know, they have that it factor about them. You know, whereas Taylor probably doesn't. He's a bit like Crawford, you know. He goes on about his own business. You know, he doesn't really talk a lot. Like, you know, one thing about Taylor and Crawford is when you say something to them, they'll bite back. They have that nastiness about them. Taylor has that nastiness about him, and so does Crawford. But they don't, like I said, they don't come across the most marketable. They're not, I feel like, yeah, I feel like they're probably not the most marketable guys, hence why they're not as known as they should be. But yeah, you know, if Taylor keeps winning, keeps looking good, keeps doing big things, then eventually, you know, his name will probably get out there. He'll become more recognized. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Taylor's career, you know, unfolds moving forward. What do you guys think about the Canelo bit and the Josh Taylor situation? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.